It starts like any other night. A glowing screen, an open thread, and a username you don't recognize. Then something feels wrong. You've found LurmoStories, where we follow those uneasy feelings all the way into their source. Don't skip. The moment you think it's safe is usually where it isn't. I take the same bus every weekday. Route 117. Suburban sprawl, strip malls, cul-de-sacs, nothing memorable. Same blue seats, same smell of rubber and old coffee. Same driver most mornings. A heavyset guy with a gray mustache and a county transit cap pulled too low. That Monday started normal. I got on at the terminal like always, tapped my card, nodded. He glanced at me longer than usual. "Everything okay?" he asked. I said, "Yeah." He frowned, like I'd answered the wrong question. "You feeling better today?" he said. I laughed a little. "I'm fine. Why?" He hesitated, then waved me through. "Just thought you looked rough yesterday." I sat halfway back, by the window. The bus pulled out late. That part bothered me more than the comment. I hadn't been on the bus yesterday. I worked from home on Fridays. Everyone at my job does. At the next stop, an older woman climbed on. The driver smiled at her. "Good to see you back," he said. "We were worried when you didn't get off at Maple." She blinked. "I always get off at Maple." He didn't reply, just drove. As we rolled through the neighborhood, I noticed the bus wasn't stopping unless someone rang the bell. Normally, he stopped automatically at the busy corners. A guy in a hoodie stood up too late and shouted, "Hey, stop!" The driver slowed, annoyed. "Should have pulled the cord yesterday like you did." "I wasn't here yesterday," the guy snapped. The bus went quiet. No music, no engine hum, just tires on asphalt. When my stop came, I stood and pulled the cord. The chime sounded wrong, flat, distorted. The driver looked at me in the mirror. "You sure this is where you want to get off?" he asked. "Yes." He opened the doors, then leaned closer. His voice dropped. "You didn't get off here yesterday. You stayed on, all the way to the yard." My stomach tightened. "What yard?" He stared straight ahead. "End of the line." I stepped off. The doors shut too fast, nearly catching my bag. As the bus pulled away, I saw something taped to the back window. A printed incident notice. I only caught one line. Unclaimed passenger. Route 117, Friday. All weekend, I checked my phone. No missed calls, no gaps in messages, but my transit app showed a completed trip on Friday night. Terminal to yard. No exit logged. Monday morning, I waited for the bus anyway. Route 117 arrived on time. Different driver. When I boarded, he looked at me carefully and said, "You're early. They said you didn't come back after Friday." "Who's they?" I asked. He closed the doors before answering. The new driver didn't introduce himself. Younger than the last guy. Clean-shaven. Kept both hands locked on the wheel like he was bracing for something. "Who said I didn't come back?" I asked again. He pulled out of the terminal without looking at me. "Dispatch. Yard supervisor. Same as always." "I ride every weekday," I said. "Nothing changed." He exhaled through his nose. "That's not what the log says." I sat down, heart already thudding. The bus felt colder than usual, lights too bright. Every seat empty except for a man near the front, staring at his phone without scrolling. We hit the first stop. Doors opened. No one got on, no one got off. The driver checked his mirror. "You gonna ring it this time?" "For what?" "For Maple," he said. "That's where you froze up." "I don't live near Maple." He nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something. "You said that, too." The man with the phone finally looked up. "Can you just keep going?" he muttered. "We're not supposed to stop early." I turned to him. "What do you mean, early?" He avoided my eyes. "You don't remember Friday, either?" The bus lurched as the driver accelerated. We passed my usual stop. I stood up. "Stop the bus," I said. The driver didn't slow. "You didn't pull the cord." "I'm pulling it now." I yanked it hard. The chime didn't sound at all. The driver glanced at the ceiling, then at me. "That's what happened, right before Maple. Cord didn't register. You stood there like you were waiting for something else." "For what?" "For permission," the man with the phone said quietly. I moved toward the front. "This isn't funny." The driver's voice hardened. You stayed seated after maple, after pine, after cedar. We kept asking. You just kept saying you'd get off on the return. The return from where? Neither of them answered. Outside the windows, the neighborhoods thinned. No houses, just chain link fences and warehouse backsides, a place the route never went. I felt dizzy. Turn around. Can't, the driver said. We already logged you on board. The bus slowed near a wide lot filled with parked buses. No logos, no numbers, just rows of identical vehicles, engines idling, though no one was inside. The man with the phone stood. This is where you stood up last time, he said, right before they noticed you weren't on the manifest. The bus doors opened. Cold air rushed in. The driver finally looked at me. You getting off now? He said, not asking. Or riding it through again? Behind him, taped to the dash, was a faded notice. Unresolved passenger. Do not engage directly. I stepped back from the door. I shook my head. I'm not getting off. The driver's jaw tightened. He reached up and flipped a switch. The interior lights dimmed to a sickly yellow. That's what you chose last time, he said. Didn't work out great. The doors stayed open. No sound from outside except engines humming in unison, like breathing. The yard lights flickered, one by one, down the rows of buses. The man with the phone stepped closer to me. I noticed his screen wasn't on, just a black reflection. They'll mark it a second loop if you stay seated, he said. Cleaner that way. What happens if I get off? I asked. He swallowed. They stop tracking you. I looked past him, at the lot, at a figure standing between two buses, barely visible, then another. And another, all facing us, all waiting. I never rode here on Friday, I said. Check the cameras, check anything. The driver laughed once, short and tired. Cameras cut when a rider misses their exit. Safety policy. That makes no sense. Neither does someone who won't get off, he replied. A radio crackled on the dash. A voice came through, flat and bored. Route 117, status? The driver pressed the button. Passenger still on board. A pause, then. Same one? Yes. Another pause, longer this time. Final run it is, the voice said. Log continuous. The man with the phone backed away from me, toward the door. I rang the cord, he said quickly. I always ring it. He stepped down onto the pavement. The doors shut behind him. I rushed forward. Wait! Too late. The bus was already moving. We passed through the yard without stopping. The rows thinned. The lights disappeared. The road narrowed into something that didn't look maintained. My phone buzzed. A notification from the transit app. Trip in progress. Please remain seated until destination. I want off, I said. The driver didn't respond. Outside, the road stretched straight and empty. No signs, no intersections, just asphalt and dark. How long is this route? I asked. He finally answered. Depends. On what? On whether you remember to get off. The bus kept going. At some point, I noticed the reflection in the glass wasn't matching my movements anymore. When I raised my hand, it stayed still. I pulled the cord again. This time, the chime rang. The driver smiled in the mirror. Good, he said. Now we can log you missing. I run the same loop most evenings. City Park, just after sunset, when the lamps buzz on and the sky still holds a little color. It's not a ritual, exactly. More like a habit that stuck, because nothing bad ever happened there. 10 laps, stretch, sit for a minute on one of the benches near the duck pond, then head home. That bench isn't special. There are 6 along the path, all the same green metal slats, all half rusted in the same places. I don't count steps or anything obsessive like that. I just end up on the one closest to the trash can because it's usually empty. The first time I noticed him, he was already sitting there. Mid-40s maybe. Baseball cap pulled low, windbreaker zipped too high for the weather. He slid over a few inches without looking up, the polite kind of movement people do when they want you to know there's room. Go ahead, he said, normal voice, local accent. I sat, checked my watch, focused on my breathing. He smelled like cigarettes and something sour, maybe old coffee. After a few seconds, he said, "You always take this one." I laughed a little because people say stuff like that. Guess so. No, he said, You try the one by the map sometimes, but you don't like how the light flickers, so you come back here. I looked at him then. He was watching the water, not me. That light's been flickering for years, I said. City never fixes it, he agreed. Tuesday's worse than Thursday. I stood up sooner than usual. He didn't react. Just nodded, like he'd checked something off a list. The next night, I slowed down before the benches. Same guy, same bench. He raised 2 fingers in a casual wave. Little earlier today, he said. Work let out? I hadn't told him where I worked. I sat on a different bench, one down, closer to the path. He watched me do it, smiling, not moving. Doesn't feel right, does it? He called. That one rocks. It did. I stood again, annoyed more than scared, and walked past him. On my 3rd lap, he was gone. The bench by the trash can was empty. I told myself that was the end of it. When I finished running, I sat on my usual spot without thinking. He was there, already shifted to make room. You'll sit longer tonight, he said. Your calf's tight. I don't remember getting up. I remember my keys shaking in my hand and his voice following me down the path. Tomorrow, he said calmly, you're going to pretend not to see me. The next evening, I almost didn't go. I stood in my apartment doorway with my shoes on, telling myself how stupid it would look to change routines over some weird guy in a park. That logic won. I ran faster than usual, earbuds in but no music playing. The park felt louder without sound filling the gaps. Dogs barking too far away. A skateboard clacking somewhere behind the trees. Lamps humming. I didn't look at the benches on my 1st lap. On the 2nd, I did, by accident. He wasn't on them. Not on any of them. Relief came quick and sharp, like a breath I didn't know I was holding. 3rd lap, I felt stupid for being relieved. 4th lap, I noticed something off. Someone had left a paper bag on my bench. Brown, folded neat, weighted down with a small rock. That bench never had trash on it. People miss the can sometimes, but not like that. I slowed to a walk. The bag had my name written on it. First name only, black marker, careful letters. I didn't touch it. I stood there long enough for my pulse to settle, then backed away and finished my run without stopping. When I left the park, he was leaning against the exit sign. Not blocking it, just there. You skipped the stretch, he said. That's how you mess up your knee. What do you want? My voice sounded wrong to my own ears. He smiled like I'd finally asked the right question. Just keeping things consistent. I told him I'd call the cops. He nodded, approving. You won't, he said. You don't like how it feels when people make a scene. You wait things out. He stepped aside so I could pass. I did. That night, my phone buzzed with a notification from my fitness app. A new route saved. Same distance as my usual loop, but reversed. Start point marked at the park entrance. I hadn't logged a run. The next day at work, my coworker asked if I'd been at the park late, said he'd driven by around 10 and saw someone sitting on my bench, hood up, just waiting. Thought it was me. That evening, I went earlier. Broad daylight. Families, kids, noise. He was already sitting there. You're early, he said. Good. We need to talk about tomorrow. I didn't sit. I didn't answer. He patted the bench once, slow and deliberate. You'll be here. You always are. Just not where you think. I left the park while the sun was still up. On my phone, another notification appeared before I got home. Tomorrow's run, scheduled, location locked. I didn't go to the park the next day. I called in sick, shut my blinds, kept my phone face down on the table. Around 6, the time I'd normally lace up, the screen lit anyway. Another notification from the app. Route confirmed. Pace target set. A little trophy icon, like it was encouraging me. I deleted the app. At 6:12, my phone buzzed again. Text message. Unknown number. You don't have to run. Sitting is fine too. I blocked it. At 6:18, a second text came through from a different number. Bench by the pond. Same one. Trash can still rattles when the wind hits it. I didn't reply. I stayed inside until dark, until my chest stopped tightening every time a car passed outside. Around 10, there was a knock at my door. Not loud, just a single, patient knock. I didn't answer. I watched the peephole until the hallway light shut off on its timer. The next morning, my doorman stopped me in the lobby, asked if I'd gotten home late, said someone had been sitting on the bench outside the building for hours, hood up, leaving around midnight. Thought it was me cooling down after a run. I drove to the park in the afternoon, telling myself daylight would make it stupid again. The bench by the trash can was empty. The others too. On the slats, carved shallow and careful, were initials. Mine. First and last. Not fresh, but not old either. Underneath, a date. Tomorrow's. I finally went to the police. They took notes, asked normal questions, told me to avoid the area, change routines, call if I saw him again. That evening, I stayed home. At 6:04, my phone vibrated. Calendar reminder this time. No app attached, just text. Final check-in. Another knock at the door followed, softer than the first one the night before. Through the peephole, I saw the hallway bench across from the elevators, the one residents use when they're waiting. He was sitting on it, hat pulled low, hands folded, already shifted to make room. He looked straight at my door. "You don't have to run," he said, voice carrying easily through the wood. "You just have to sit where you're supposed to." I stayed silent. After a while, he nodded to himself, stood up, and walked toward the stairs. The next day, maintenance replaced the park benches. All of them. New wood, bolted down in different spots. My fitness app account reappeared on my phone without being installed. No route saved, no history, just one notification, unread. Bench unavailable, location updated. I rent a one-bedroom in a brick apartment building outside Milwaukee. Nothing special. 4 floors, shared laundry in the basement, the kind of place where you recognize shoes before faces. I lived there almost a year without learning anyone's name. The laundry room was the only place people ever talked. One Tuesday night, I went down with a basket of towels and quarters. The room smelled like detergent and warm metal, 3 washers rattling, one dryer thumping unevenly. An old woman sat in the plastic chair by the folding table, hands folded over a canvas grocery bag. I'd seen her before, always there, never doing laundry. She smiled when I walked in. Not friendly exactly, more like she'd been waiting for something to line up. "Evening," she said. "Hey," I answered, loading a washer. The machine rejected 2 quarters before finally accepting them. She watched closely. Her eyes followed my hands, not my face. "Unit 12, she said, "still overpaying on electricity." I paused. "Sorry?" She nodded toward the breaker panel on the wall. "Old wiring. That fridge pulls more than it should. Management won't fix it unless it fails inspection." I laughed once, uneasy. "Yeah, I guess." She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. My name was written on it. Full name, correct spelling. I felt heat crawl up my neck. "Where did you get that?" She slid the envelope onto the folding table. "It's taken care of." Inside was a receipt from the utility company. My account number, last month's balance, paid in full, timestamped that afternoon. "I think there's been a mistake," I said. She stood, slowly. Up close, she smelled like starch and cold air. "No mistake, you left the lights on again last night, kitchen and hallway." "That doesn't—" "You came home late," she continued, calm. "Dryer was broken, so you hung your shirt in the bathroom. It dripped onto the mat." I hadn't told anyone that. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification from the power company. "Thank you for your payment." The old woman picked up her bag. "I don't like owing," she said. "Now we're even." "For what?" I asked. She stopped at the stairs and looked back at me. "For the noise, on Sundays." The washers stopped all at once. The room went quiet except for the hum of the lights. She turned off the lights on her way out. The lights came back on automatically a few seconds later. Motion sensor. I stood there longer than necessary, listening to the pipes tick in the walls, convincing myself it was just an odd neighbor with too much time. I folded my laundry fast and went upstairs. That night, I checked my door twice before sleeping. The lock was fine, deadbolt solid, nothing missing. Still, I slept light. The next morning, there was a note taped to my door. Plain white paper. "Dryer still out. Use the 3rd washer. It drains slower." No signature. In the hallway, I watched other tenants pass. A guy with headphones. A woman carrying a plant. No old lady. I knocked on the super's office after work and asked about her. "Older tenant," he said. "Basement?" "Yeah, short, gray hair, always down there." He frowned. "Laundry room's empty most of the time." I pressed. "She paid my utility bill." He laughed once, then stopped when he saw my face. "Nobody else is authorized to access tenant accounts." That evening, I checked my email. Another message from the utility company. A confirmation for next month. Scheduled payment. Same account, same name listed as payer. Not mine. I tried canceling it online. The option was grayed out. Back in the laundry room, the chair by the folding table was gone. In its place sat a cardboard box, neatly taped shut, my unit number written on top. Inside were things I recognized too quickly. A spare key I'd lost weeks earlier, the old shower mat, a cracked phone charger, stuff I'd thrown out. At the bottom was a manila folder. Inside, printed photos of my apartment. Kitchen light on, hallway light off, me asleep on the couch. Timestamps in the corner. A washer beeped behind me. I turned fast. She stood in the doorway, blocking the stairs. "I told you about Sundays," she said, still calm. "You're quieter now." My mouth went dry. "How are you getting in?" She shook her head. "That's not important." "It is to me." She stepped aside so I could see past her. The breaker panel door was open. Inside, one switch was labeled with my apartment number. Someone had written it by hand. "Electricity connects things," she said. "People forget that." I backed toward the door. "I want my account back." "You will," she said, "after this cycle." The washer finished draining. Water gurgled through the pipes, loud, deliberate. She smiled again, not waiting this time. "Continue." I didn't go back to my apartment that night. I slept in my car in a grocery store parking lot with the seat reclined and my phone on silent. Around 2:40 a.m., another notification came in anyway. Payment processed. The amount matched my average usage almost exactly. In the morning, I called the utility company. After 3 transfers, a woman told me my account had been merged under a legacy payer profile. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means the payer predates our digital records," she said. "The account can't be separated without proof of residency change." "I'm the resident." There was a pause. "Our system shows continuous occupancy." When I got back to the building, the hallway outside my unit smelled faintly like bleach. My door was unlocked. Inside, the lights were on. Every single one. Even the closet. On the kitchen counter sat another envelope. This one thinner. Inside was a printed ledger. Dates, times, small notes. Sunday. Noise complaint resolved. Lights corrected. Water usage improving. At the bottom, final adjustment pending. I heard the elevator ding. Slow footsteps, familiar. She didn't come inside. She stood in the hallway, hands folded. "You're moving," she said, not asking. "I am," I said. "Today." She nodded. "Good, that simplifies things." "What happens to the account?" I asked. She looked past me, into the apartment. "It stays with the unit." I packed what I could fit in my car and left the rest. When I handed the keys to the super, he asked why I was breaking the lease. "Electrical issues," I said. He sighed. "Yeah, that unit's always been tricky." I asked him one last thing. "Who lived there before me?" He checked his clipboard. "Same woman, long time ago. Paid everything on time." "Where is she now?" He shrugged. "Still does, I guess." A week later, in my new place, I opened my first utility bill. Correct name, correct address. Unpaid balance. Under payment history, there was a single line already filled in for next month. Scheduled payer, Unit 12. This was LurmoStories, where we turn quiet threads into loud memories. If you catch yourself rereading these stories in your head later, remember, you chose to stay until the end.